Hey everybody, this is Deb with Truthification Chronicles, and I know you probably realize that Trump put out an executive order concerning the citizenship question, but I wanted to give it to you in documentation. You know me, I love the documents, so I wanted to give it to you in the documentation so you have it all at hand. And one of the things that I came across, of course, was the video where Trump makes his announcement. And of course, Barr is there and he gives a little speech, which, by the way, I'll put the link to the video down below. And also, here is Barr's statement in writing. So if you'd like to see that, he did a good job in putting that down. So I'll include that too in the links below. But when you watch this video, don't shut it off when they walk away, okay? Because if you go here, along in here, you're going to see a little kerfuffle that took place. And I would like to know, this woman considers herself a citizen journalist, but I'm not familiar with her. So if you know her name, I would be interested in seeing some of her work. So, put it down below. But anyway, she and some others kind of got into it. And I'm not sure who this guy is here that they were talking to, but he is part of the mainstream media. I just, I don't watch him enough to be familiar with him. And especially since all I got to see was like the back of his head. So I don't really know who he is. But he was definitely not happy that she calls herself a journalist in any way, shape, or form. And this guy was standing up for her. So I'm not sure who these people are. If you know who they are, I'd love you to put the link down below, who they are, what their channel is, or what their Twitter feed is, or, just what they do. I would love to know who they are and have a little bit of information about them. And this guy too, I don't know who he is, but he's mainstream media for sure. And they got into it. Okay. So it's very interesting. Don't shut it off because you need to see this interaction. I'm really not sure. Actually, James O'Keefe was in here at the beginning talking to this guy and trying to make nice with the guy. And the guy was not treating him very well. So I don't know if there was an interaction between them, maybe on Twitter or something that happened. But yeah, it's well worth watching. And I would love to hear your insights down below because I don't know exactly what happened here. But yeah, the mainstream media guy was not real happy with a citizen journalist. Because the citizen journalist, he said, was only giving her opinion and was not fact-checking anything. Like, they fact-check stuff. Yeah, they have these unnamed sources. But, when we go out and we find actual facts to back up what we're saying, they call us conspiracy theorists. So, anyway. Yeah, I just needed to put that in there because I was almost ready to shut it off and all of a sudden this started happening and it's like, whoa, that was worth watching. So anyway, I will put the link to this down below. You can watch it. And really the entire thing is only 15 minutes long. And at the end of it, the last minute or so, couple minutes, they just, it was empty seats and then it went black and so it's black screen. But anyway, so let me know if you know who these people are, and I would be interested to know if you have any more information on exactly what happened there. I think it's very interesting that this went on, but I wish I knew more about it. Let us go on to the executive order because, as I said, I always like to have the documentation and to actually read things for myself so I know firsthand what's going on instead of just passing on somebody said that it said this, okay? So this is the entire executive order. It's kind of long, so I'm really not going to read it all, but I will read some parts of it. And of course, this case right here that we talked about in a previous video, the Department of Commerce v. New York. The Supreme Court held that the Department of Commerce may, as a general matter, lawfully include a question inquiring about citizenship status on the decennial census and, more specifically, declined to hold that the Secretary of Commerce's decision to include such a question on the 2020 decennial census was substantively valid. That ruling was not surprising given that every decennial census from 1820 to 2000, with the single exception of 1840, asked at least some respondents about their citizenship status or place of birth. In addition, the Census Bureau has inquired since 2005 about citizenship on the American Community Survey, a separate questionnaire sent annually to about 2.5% of households. The court determined, however, that the explanation the department had provided for including such a question on the census was, in the circumstances of that case, insufficient to support the department's decision. I disagree with the court's ruling because I believe that the department's decision was fully supported by the rationale presented on the record before the Supreme Court. And in my personal opinion, I don't understand why it's even a question why you want it on there. The real question is it a valid question to have? And the Supreme Court ruled, yes, it is a valid question to include on the census. So why does it matter why they're putting it on there? It shouldn't matter at all. So I think it is just, a smokescreen type thing. And I was very disappointed with Robert's decision on that. So it just kind of supports the fact that he is really compromised, and I wouldn't trust him for any vote that we really need. So we definitely need Ruth Bader Ginsburg's seat. Anyway, the court's ruling, however, has now made it impossible as a practical matter to include a citizenship question on the 2020 decennial census questionnaire because they had to start printing them by June 30th. And, there's a lot that they have to print, and it takes time. So, they had to have everything finalized and get it all done by then, so they weren't able to put it in there. After examining every possible alternative, the Attorney General and the Secretary of Commerce have informed me that the logistics and timing for carrying out the census, combined with delays from continuing litigation, leave no practical mechanism for including the question on the 2020 decennial census. Okay, so that just was a matter of timing. Now, Trump is not using this executive order to overturn what the Supreme Court said. Okay, please be aware of that. It's really important that we understand that Trump is doing things legally. He is not using this executive order to go against the Supreme Court. Okay, that's not the problem. The Supreme Court did say it's a legitimate question, which to me, that's all that needs to be said. But again, to them, they needed the reason, I guess. Yeah. Anyway, nevertheless, we shall ensure that accurate citizenship data is compiled in connection with the census by other means. To achieve that goal, I have determined that it is imperative that all executive departments and agencies provide the department with maximum assistance permissible, consistent with law, in determining the number of citizens and non-citizens in the country, including by providing any access that the department may request to administrative records that may be useful in accomplishing that objective. Okay, so essentially that's what he said. And you can go through and see all the different types of data sources they were going to access, and that they think that if they access these various data sources, they should be able to have all the information they need to compile a much more accurate count of how many are citizens and how many are not. So, it's really kind of sad that we couldn't have had that on there. But I think they are believing that they can find out from this more information. And it'll be more accurate, I guess. At least that's what it's saying. And if you go through, he's talking about establishment of an interagency working group to improve access to administrative records. And they're going to get a lot of records that it's kind of interesting because back after Trump was inaugurated, he created an election integrity committee. I can't remember exactly what it was called, but it was to, establish a better way of doing the elections and to eliminate voter fraud. Well, one of the things that they got in trouble with, Chris Kobach was in charge of it, and he got in trouble, and the Democrats went all crazy because he wanted to have a lot of these records, like Social Security and just various things. And it seems to me that this is what they're going to be getting. Now, I could be wrong on that, but it does seem that's going to be happening. Now, they did dissolve that committee, but it was actually incorporated. It's kind of a sneaky move because it was incorporated into DHS. So it's still kept on with its work, but it was no longer under the same scrutiny that it was when it was the committee. So anyway, I just wanted to put that in there. And if I can remember to put in, I did a video on it, and I will try to include that video in a little link to it. So sometimes I forget. But anyway, so as it goes on, I wanted to, point out, he gives the reasons. First, the data on the number of citizens and aliens in the country is needed to help us understand the effects of immigration on our country and to inform policymakers considering basic decisions about immigration policy, which, it only makes sense. If you're going to be making policies about immigration, shouldn't you know how many people you're really dealing with? It just makes sense. So, it talks more about that, and you can go through and read them. Second, the lack of complete data on numbers of citizens and aliens hinders the federal government's ability to implement specific programs and to evaluate policy proposals for changes in those programs. Now, this is the part that's going to make the Democrats' heads spin. For example, the lack of such data limits our ability to evaluate policies concerning certain public benefits programs. It remains the immigration policy of the United States, as embodied in statutes passed by the Congress, that aliens within the nation's borders should not depend on public resources to meet their needs, but rather rely on their own capabilities and the resources of their families, their sponsors, and private organizations, and that the availability of public benefits should not constitute an incentive for immigration to the United States. That is the U.S. Code. I mean, that's what it is. 8 U.S. Code 1601, Section 2. That's what it says. So they are not supposed to be able to give benefits to illegals. It's just very clear. The Congress has identified compelling government interests in restricting public benefits in order to assure that aliens be self-reliant in accordance with national immigration policy and to remove the incentive for illegal immigration provided by the availability of public benefits. This is the law. Okay? Those are direct quotes. This is the law. So there is no reason why in the world they should be getting any public benefits. Accordingly, aliens are restricted from eligibility for many public benefits. With limited exceptions, aliens are ineligible to receive supplemental security income or food stamps, and there's the code for that. Aliens who are qualified aliens, that is, lawful permanent residents, persons granted asylum, and certain other legal immigrants, are, with limited exceptions, ineligible to receive benefits through temporary assistance for needy families, Medicaid, and state children's health insurance program for 5 years after entry into the United States. Again, there's the law. The law is there. This is what the law says. So when the Democrats are saying they want to give free health care and free education and free all of these other benefits to these illegals, they need to go back and read the federal law, because the federal law says otherwise. Aliens who are not qualified aliens, such as those unlawfully present, are generally ineligible for federal benefits and for state and local benefits. That's the law. So they need to read the law. And so, of course, that's the deal. See, the Democrats like to offer all these freebie things so that they can get people to vote for them. That's how they maintain their voters. Because if they weren't giving out freebie stuff, people wouldn't vote for them. And they would not retain their power. And they're desperate to retain their power. Third, data identifying citizens will help the federal government generate a more reliable count of the unauthorized alien population in the country. And again, the Democrats are going, no, we don't want you to know how many there are, because you're going to find out that we've been using them as our voter base. Data tabulating both the overall population and a citizen population could be combined with records of aliens lawfully present in the country to generate an estimate of the aggregate number of aliens unlawfully present in each state. Ooh, and the guys in California are going, no, you can't do this. But he's going to. So anyway, I just thought this was very interesting. I wanted to point that out to you that, yeah, there are definite reasons why we need to know how many are illegals. And he lays it all out here. It's very important. And then he also talks about how, our immigration and asylum system remains in crisis as a consequence of the mass migration of aliens across our southern border. As a result of our broken asylum laws, hundreds of thousands of aliens who entered the country illegally have been released into the interior of the United States pending the outcome of their removal proceedings. But because of the massive backlog of cases, hearing dates are sometimes set years in the future, and the adjudication process often takes years to complete. Aliens not in custody routinely fail to appear in court, and even if they do appear, fail to comply with removal orders. There are more than 1 million illegal aliens who have been issued final removal orders from immigration judges and yet remain at large in the United States. You know what ICE is supposed to be doing? So, and then fourth, it has to do with the local legislative districts, but it does have some leeway here, according to what he says, that states may be able to fudge on that. So I don't think that's going to affect some of the states because they'll just choose not to base their districting plan on voter eligible population. So, I don't know, but it goes on, and I told you it was really long. So basically he's just saying, look, we're going to do this. And we're going to find out all what's going on and how many people there really are in our country. So that's his statement. And, he's really got some good stuff here. It's, he's had lawyers help him, definitely. And they have this covered. See, he's got people who are really sharp on the law who are working with him to find ways around things. And this is one of the things they found, that, he can do this. And it is perfectly fine that he does. So the executive orders. So they're going, look, these are all the departments. They're going to be accessing this stuff. And these are a lot of the databases that voter fraud committee wanted to access. And the Democrats were like, no, you can't do that. Now, the only step they need is to take voter rolls and compare them against these. That's the key, because once they start doing that, then they can find out if the voter rolls do indeed have illegals on there. So that could be big. I would assume that's going to be the next step, that somehow they get a hold of more voter rolls. The states have not been real forthcoming with those. A lot of the states are like, no, you can't have them. But of course, they sell those lists to corporations that want to mail you stuff. And I think the Democrat Party and the Republican Party can go in and they can purchase them from any state. So if they're going to give them to them, why can't they give them to the government? Well, the reason they can't, it's not that they can't, it's that they won't. And this stuff at the end, by the way, is just kind of necessary to put on there because it you can't, it's not going to supersede what these different departments do. And, so that's kind of boilerplate down there. It just stays the same all the time. But anyway, so I'm going to give this to you. And just, when you're talking to people, make sure that they understand this part right here, the second part, because I think this is really one of the keys. And it's going to be huge if he can get this done and they end up not getting federal money to do these things for illegals. That could be interesting. And not even illegals. It's people who are here legally too. Are not supposed to be able to access that for 5 years. So very interesting information, right? And again, I'm going to put this down below for you. And you can read through Barr's comments again, but it's pretty much what he said back here in this video, the part that was Trump. But I also wanted to point out a couple things. Now, as I'm doing this, I'm recording this on Saturday night. So New York City, big parts of it are black right now, are in blackout. And I just wanted to point out that according to the researchers, it appears that the blackout is primarily located right around the facility where Epstein and El Chapo are being held. So I don't know what that means. I think it's kind of a coincidence, and I really, hesitate to say there are coincidences these days because a lot of things are being orchestrated. So then I remember back to those helicopters, doing that operation in that West Coast city, somewhere over in the West Coast. It was at night, and they came in and they had their lights off and everything, and they were going in between buildings. And so I don't know, was that a dry run for this? Is something going on? Or is it maybe somebody's trying to help them get away, But I tend to think patriots are in control. So who knows? Maybe things are going to get really heated up. Maybe there were some other people who needed to be detained, and this was a way of doing that. But look at this. Yeah, it's all dark, and then what happens? There's an American flag. Oh, isn't that beautiful? So yeah, that's what's going on right now. Now, I do think that they're getting more power back. Last I heard, it was 30,000 that were still out, but it had been up, much higher than that. So who knows? I don't live in New York City, and as far as I'm concerned, it's like, I don't care. I know it makes it very hard for those who live in New York City. I understand it. Being in a large city with no power would be not a great thing, and especially if it's hot like it is around here right now. So something to just think about, and keep your eye on the news. Let's find out what happens. But I just think it was really odd that it just so happened to be right around there. And also, one of the streets that it was pointing at, I can't remember, 71st maybe, was where Epstein has his house. And so, that's odd too. It just incorporated that particular facility. Now, of course, they have backup generators and stuff. So I'm sure that wasn't that kind of problem, but it may have allowed them to do some things. The Patriots could do a few things that maybe they couldn't have done before. And then, the National Guard supposedly being called in so they can, help with the traffic. So National Guard will be there. That's interesting too. Just thought I would put that out there for you. Who knows? By tomorrow morning when you watch this, it could all be resolved and nothing to it. But I wanted to point that out. Oh yeah, and it was the 42nd anniversary of when the lights went out before in New York City. So, it's kind of odd, right on the same day. So, yeah, a little Twilight Zone-y there, right? So anyway, remember to check to see if you're subscribed, because YouTube has been randomly unsubscribing people massively on my channel. I mean, check out this chart. Yeah, it's discouraging kind of. The last month or so has not been great. I don't know what to do because I'm still getting a good thumbs up to thumbs down ratio. And so I think I'm doing an okay job, and yet people are dropping like flies. I do think it's not organic though. I think they're being helped along. So just check that, little button there and make sure that you are subscribed. I would appreciate it. So anyway, that's what I've got for you. I want to thank you for stopping by, and I'll see y'all later.